What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and it's Tuesday, which means it's time to talk through my must-add waiver wire targets for Week 13 of the fantasy football season. This is where I give you guys 10 to 20 players, all under 50% owned in ESPN leagues to go out there and grab as we head towards Week 13 and the fantasy playoffs here. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and we'll get right to it because we did have a big injury last night. We had J.K. Dobbins go down with a potential MCL sprain, potential meniscus injury. This is from Adam Hutchinson here. He says it's something with the knee. He has a history of left knee injuries, of course, J.K. Dobbins. Kind of a sad story between ACL tear and Achilles tear that he is had to go through a lot in his NFL career is kind of what you can put it at this point. And he has him sitting anywhere from no time at all to maybe like 4+ weeks. So there's some stuff up in the air here, and I think that's why I would be grabbing Gus Edwards as one of my top guys. Not Zamir White, Gus Edwards here. But this is going to be our priority ad. Now, of course, this video is going to come out sometime around midday. I did want to make sure we updated this with what happened last night, and Gus Edwards is a really good ad. Now, he wasn't very efficient last night, but the Baltimore Ravens defense is very good at stopping the run. He had 9 carries, 11 yards, and 1 touchdown, but the big story here is that he is going to be the lead back now without J.K. Dobbins. And I do want to also point out, we had Hassan Haskins in this game, right? This is the snap shares from last night once Dobbins left the game from Dave Richard here. Just 27% of the snaps to Gus Edwards. He had the inside the 10 carry, of course. And then Hassan Haskins at 73%. The reason why I'm not sold on Hassan Haskins here is that if you look at the snap shares since week 6, Hassan Haskins had never played more than 10% of the snaps. So this week he played 40%. He ran 36% of the routes, something that he never did before then. Week 6 on. He is not a pass-catching back by trade, Hassan Haskins. It's usually J.K. Dobbins out there in passing situations. I think that we will see Kamani Vidal get back on the active roster. You can see here, week 6 through 9, 26% of the routes, 30%, 13%, 6%, and that was just kind of J.K. Dobbins phasing him out of that area of the field. I would say that after Dobbins, he is the next best receiving running back, so I think that he would be just an ad for me. I'm not putting any kind of fab on Kamani Vidal there, but someone that can be rostered in deeper leagues. These first 5 or so players are my priority ads, though. Gus Edwards is somebody I would be bidding, 10% plus of my budget. We're getting towards the end here, so if you need a running back very bad, you definitely can unload the clip. Now, another guy who would be in our priority ad section here is going to be Jeremy McNichols. Similar situation here where we just have a ton of injuries. We have 2 here. This is from Jeff Mueller over on 4for4 that he does an injury roundup every single week. It's a really good article. I would go check it out. But they have a Week 14 bye week, Washington. And we have Austin Eckler who has a concussion. And you have Brian Robinson who had a right ankle sprain. Now, he did return in this game, but we've seen this before with like Zach Moss. We've seen it before with Joe Mixon. These guys can return with an ankle injury, and then it swells back up, and then they miss a couple weeks. It wouldn't be crazy for both of those running backs to sit through the bye and just kind of get fresh coming into Week 15 at that point. But Jeremy McNichols, regardless, would be the next man up. When Eckler missed Week 4, and I think Eckler is more of the lock to miss a game here with the concussion, McNichols went out there and had 20 PPR points. So even if Brian Robinson plays, I think McNichols at worst is like an RB3. And if neither play, then he becomes like an RB2 this week. So he's also somebody that I would make a priority. I want to get the actual box score here when it came to that Week 4 game. Yeah, so Eckler wasn't in this game. And he came out here. He did score the touchdowns, 8 carries, 68 yards, 2 touchdowns, a catch for 6 yards. So not a ton of volume, but he's going to be out there involved in what's a pretty good offense here. Then you have the Raiders running backs. Now, this one's tricky, all right? We had Amir Abdullah, which was very fun, right? Someone that, I remember his Detroit Lions days when people thought that he was going to be the real deal. And this is a tweet from J.J. Zacharyson, and Amir Abdullah is still out there. Without Alexander Madison and Zamir White, Amir Abdullah played 90% of the offensive snaps in Week 12. That's the first time a Vegas back was over the 70 mark this season. Abdullah scored 17.5 PPR points, tying the most from a Raiders back this season. So that's really good. The issue is here that there's a pretty good chance that Zamir White, who had kind of a minor injury, could be back in the mix this week, making them both ads. If Zamir White can't go, Amir Abdullah becomes a priority ad. If they both can go, then they're both kind of suspect RB3 type of starts, where Zamir White would be kind of in his role he has been all year as like half of the snaps, some touches between the 20s, and nothing else to really write home for. And then Amir Abdullah strictly on passing down. Something to definitely monitor as the week goes on. And then we'll talk about some receivers here as like legitimate priority ads if you need some receiver help I really like A.D. Mitchell. Josh Downs sadly hurt his shoulder in this game versus the Lions over the weekend. They are saying that he is a long shot to play this upcoming week. You guys know I love A.D. Mitchell. He gets first downs. He commands targets. He's been efficient. Just a matter of him getting on the field and running routes. If Josh Downs can't go, that would open up an opportunity for A.D. Mitchell to go out there, run some routes, especially some fun routes or just fun usage out of the slot. And the only game this year that he's had a 70% snap share or better, he had 6 catches for 71 yards. He should get really similar usage with the upside of torching a New England defense that got killed last week by the Dolphins. Then we'll also talk about our last, we have 2 priority ads left, one of them being Dontavion Wicks. This one's tough. He hasn't really produced a ton this year, despite some, lofty expectations here, but Romeo Doubs had a concussion, and they play Thursday. Romeo Doubs didn't practice Monday with a concussion. I would say that he's most likely not going to play on Thursday. That would get Wicks into the mix, right? Where we would probably have him, Christian Watson, and Jaden Reed all over 70% of the snaps. And the 2 games Wicks has this year with 75% or more of the snaps, he had 24.8 PPR points in one of those games, 4 points in the other. So he becomes like a boom-bust flex type of guy, but you could definitely do a lot worse than Dontavion Wicks at this point in the season. And then I also wanted to shout out Elijah Moore, who's just been like a fine wide receiver 3. Everything that Jameis Winston touches turns to gold. He is now at 11.2 points per game as like a mid-range wide receiver 3 with Jameis Winston. Now, moving on from our priority ads here, we just have some cleanup duty at the running back position. First, we'll talk about Roschon Johnson. He scored a touchdown again today. They've been using him in this new offense called by Thomas Brown and not Shane Waldron. He has been the goal line back. His usage did go down since week 11, though. He went from 11 opportunities to 3. But if he's still getting goal line works and he's still going to be out there in some receiving situations, he is somebody that needs to be rostered where you can start him and hope for a touchdown, or you can stash him and wait for a DeAndre Swift injury if that ever comes. Similar story with Antonio Gibson. This one is actually very weird, where I don't know what Ramondre did to get benched. I think that he was just ineffective versus the Dolphins, but Antonio Gibson actually outsnapped Ramondre Stevenson 30-29, and he ran 3 more routes here according to JJ Zachariason. Now, that only resulted in Antonio Gibson getting 6 carries for 31 yards and 1 catch for 14 yards, but he hadn't hit 40% or more of the offensive snaps since, I want to say, like week 4. Let me see. He was playing he was much more involved earlier in the year. Yeah, he hasn't hit 40% plus since week 6. So this was new usage for Antonio Gibson and kind of makes him more of a preferred handcuff. Now, I did also want to do like kind of a rapid fire of just like handcuffs that should be on rosters right now. We have Tyler Algier, the backup to Bijan. Even though his usage came down before the bye, if Bijan was to go down, he would be an RB1. You have Ray Davis. He has been very efficient and he's shown a lot of juice. If James Cook ever goes down, Ray Davis would be a must-start. Same thing with Tank Bigsby. Even though this offense isn't nearly as good as those other two, if ETN goes down, Bigsby would be very interesting. Then you also have Jordan Mason, who's been dropped a lot. But with kind of this Brock Purdy thing, and if the 49ers find themselves on the outside looking in on the playoffs, and if McCaffrey has even the slightest tweak of this Achilles thing, Jordan Mason could get a ton of carries for like the last few weeks. Then you have Cam Akers. Of course, the handcuff to Aaron Jones. Now, moving on to the wide receivers here, we have some interesting names, right? And I always put at the top the rookie wide receivers. This is the time of the year where rookie wide receivers pop off, become difference makers. And I like Devon Vele, man. He has been out here playing really well. He had 9 targets, 6 catches, 80 yards this week. And you can see on his rookie receiver report here, he is below Marvin Harrison Jr., He is at a 20% targets per out run, 1.81 yards per out run, 9% first downs per out run, and a 78 PFF grade. Almost identical per route numbers to Marvin Harrison Jr. He has been great. Bo Nix has been great. And he's had 10 or more PPR points in each of his last 3 weeks. So Devon Vele, you could do a lot worse than. And then you also have Xavier Legette as another rookie with upside. Bryce Young is finally usable. I keep seeing, now look, his per out numbers aren't great. Xavier Legette, you can see on the rookie receiver chart. Where is he at? Yeah, 17% targets per out run, 1.23 yards per out run. He hasn't been super efficient, but I keep seeing cut-ups of film guys absolutely loving his release or his route running or whatever. Bryce Young's looking capable. This offense is taking a step forward. It wouldn't shock me if Xavier Legette had a couple of big games here down the stretch. We'll talk about Noah Brown as our last receiver here, where he's actually led Washington in targets over these last few weeks. This is from Ian Hartitz here. Commanders targets over the last 4 weeks: Noah Brown at 27, Zach Ertz at 24, Eckler at 18, and then Terry McLaurin at 17. Now, Terry McLaurin should get a lot more volume, right? I think all of us can agree on that as people that have Terry McLaurin on a team. But Noah Brown has just been that guy. He had 10 targets in this game versus Dallas. He had 6 catches, 71 yards, and he's just been kind of a fine flex if you need that in your lineup. Now, moving on to tight ends, we'll talk through Will Dissly. He's been okay, right? He only gave you 8.7 PPR points last night, but his usage is good. He's running over 70% of the routes, or at least he did last night. He's been at 67% or better in 6 of his last 8 games. Since the bye, his usage has been good. He's been averaging like a 20% target share. This is all you can really ask for from a tight end. And when we get into the dumpster diving territory and guys like Hunter Henry aren't on waivers, and of course, Jonnu Smith isn't on waivers, these are the guys we're dealing with. And then we'll also talk about Cole Kmet, who is somehow the tight end 13 on the year. He had 10 targets this week. Maybe that's a sign of things to come with Thomas Brown as the OC. Can he get more involved? We've seen Cole Kmet be a big difference maker before in the past, so I don't mind wanting to kind of rely on him for this home stretch if you need tight end help down the stretch. Then you have some quarterback streamers here. I like Russell Wilson. He's shown some upside, right? He has had a couple of down games here. He did have, the Browns defense in snowy conditions. This week against Cincinnati, he gets a Cincinnati defense that is allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So that should be a nice rebound spot. And then similar idea for Drake May, who gets the Colts, who are allowing the 3rd most fantasy points, the 13th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, which is a nice neutral matchup. And he's available in many more leagues. He's available in 20 or 30. No. He's available in 70% of leagues at this point, 78.5%. to be exact. You get the idea, right? Russell Wilson, more right on the fringes, right? 49.3%. So he's going to be on rosters in a lot of your leagues. Drake May, much more widely available. Now, that is going to do it for us today. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. At this point in the year, just leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving, a great weekend. I don't think we're going to have any videos moving forward. I will have on the Patreon my waiver wire article. I will have weekly rankings, rest of season rankings, all that good stuff will be on the Patreon, patreon.com/SharonStewart. But if you can't support there, appreciate you guys watching, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm